Let's talk about the schedule just a little bit, and then we'll wrap up and get out of here.
Yeah.
Just running down it real quick. As an outsider, right? Like
Hmm.
my perception of it is that you, you flip the Oklahoma Texas thing, which probably helps a little bit, but you're going on the road instead of playing, UT early in the, or in the
Or
big house,
Oklahoma.
which they
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
last
Sorry,
year.
Oklahoma. I should have said. Yeah, we played Texas last year.
Texas
Yeah.
last year, the Oklahoma this year.
Now Oklahoma there. Yeah.
But should get off to a good start with New Mexico State. Oklahoma, another program that, that feels like it kind of feels like a must win for them. And not that Michigan doesn't need to win it too after
Hmm.
a kind of a down year, disappointing year. But man, for Oklahoma, it feels like, man, if you don't win that one at home, and then you got the SEC slate coming up that they have, um, I think they play. I think they play like 9 teams in the top 25 of Vegas odds to win the national championship. So like 9 top 25 teams
God,
with like,
what's that like? I have no idea.
um, so it seems like that's one that, man,
Uh
their season could get off the rails pretty early.
huh.
That one will be big for both teams and a fun out of conference matchup that'll tell us a lot about both teams and what they'll have in their respective conference schedules. Obviously on the road at USC early, the middle part of the schedule, or the middle to later part of the schedule, I think certainly more manageable. Washington, you get at home, the rivalry up against Michigan State, but then
Hmm.
it kind of lightens up. Purdue, Northwestern, Maryland, 2 of those on the road, but nothing that I would say is like not games that Michigan's going to be favored in or needs to win. And then obviously, until I see Ryan Day beat, maybe we just lump Ohio State into that too. That until I see him win again, the Michigan fans will love that comment.
Maybe Ohio State will
Maybe the whole
never.
last month is easy.
Maybe
But you
they
get
will
that one at
never
home
beat
too.
Michigan again. Maybe like the last time Ohio State will ever beat Michigan is 2019,
Yeah,
right?
it
Like
just
the yeah,
in
it's well,
a win in perpetuity. But I do
yeah,
think that there's some big games early. Obviously, the big one with Ohio State at the end of the year. But then the middle part of the schedule, I think, sets up pretty well to where if you can, I mean, shoot, if you can take 2 out of 3 from Oklahoma, USC, and Washington, which I do think Washington will be better this year than they were last year. I think you'd really put yourself in the driver's seat to have a pretty good year. Um,
yeah.
I,
You
I'm
got a you got a
I'm
lot
leaning
of
the
year
over.
twos.
They're an 8.5 win total. I'm leaning the over right now. Maybe I'm drinking some Kool-Aid, but life's also too short to bet unders in general. But
Yeah.
I kind of like the over of 8.5.
Um, I could see it. I mean it's a little weird because there's a lot of like we were going through the schedule a couple of years ago, and I was like, wow, we're facing everybody in their first year. Like everyone's got a new coach this season.
Yeah.
This year, it's like everybody's in their second or third year, which is where you really find out about a coach, right? So, what is Venables, Oklahoma? Right? Are they going to take another step forward, or are they taking a step back? I don't think anyone knows. And then I don't think you're going to know until that game, right? That's going to be a real prove it game for those two teams. Now, Oklahoma could win that game and all of a sudden look like a contender. They're supposed to be, given who their recruits are, given the kind of players that they brought in, given where those players are in their development timeline, you should think Oklahoma is coming to a peak this year. And they should be a lot better than they were last year. But until you see it, right? So there's that one. Nebraska's another team in that kind of same boat where they got a new coach. They had a year zero. They had to clean out the players. Had to like live on some transfers. Now they got a 5-star quarterback going into his sophomore season, so he's not going to have to be coddled as much. They're going to actually get to use him and see what they put around him. And they're going to be a tough test. Now we have to go to Nebraska to play that game on September 20th. So that's one where the difficulty, I think you're looking at that team and you're like, okay, Nebraska, they haven't been doing anything for a while, but they're coming into that range now
Mm-hmm.
where they should be competitors, where last year they were kind of the year before they're going to be competitors. So I think that that's a team that you have to watch out for. Now, I've been saying this about Nebraska for so long that it's like,
Yeah. Nebraska fans are ready for you to be right.
yeah. Wisconsin, another one of those teams. They just gave their head coach a contract extension. They showed enough at the end of last season to extend and not kind of undo what they're doing. But it's like sometimes you look at Wisconsin, like I think these guys have lost the plot because who is Wisconsin? What are you? Wisconsin was one thing for so long, and they abandoned that to be the spread team. Now they're pulling back on that, but now you've lost all those players. You've lost all that institutional knowledge that you had. So I think that's another kind of prove it team. If I had to guess, I think Nebraska probably is over that notch. I think that Oklahoma's over that notch. I think both those teams are going to be substantially improved next year, and Wisconsin's the opposite. I think they're kind of on their way down. USC weirdly is in that vein too.
Hmm.
USC has to redo their offense because they lost a lot of their players. They're stepping into like the a next generation after the last guys kind of all left. And defensively, they're in year 2 of trying to install the same defense that we have. So that's very interesting to see how that's going. We have to go to USC. That's another one where like I don't know if I trust that program knows what they're doing, right? Like if they
Right.
could be, but maybe they are. Maybe they're just coming into that year. Washington's another one, second year second year on a new regime. Last year they kind of had to throw things together last minute. This year they get their feet underneath them. I think they're going to be a lot more improved. I actually like Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. I think
Yeah.
he's a smart coach. I think he's a good guy. It's very weird to have that combination at Michigan State University, but for now they haven't eaten him alive. Um, they're they're not going to take it forever if he, because they have a certain expectation there, which is not the same thing as reality. But he's building something there, I think, and he knows what he's doing. And I like a lot of the players he's picked up. They're players that I've heard of in Metro Detroit from like local high school coaches and whatnot, saying like, "Oh, that's a good move." Oh, I'm glad he knew about that guy. I'm interested to see where Michigan State is in year 2 because that's another team that like last year, not expecting anything of them. Purdue, another one. So there's just a lot of these teams who are like, man, I don't know. Maybe they could do something this year. The end of the season, I don't think Northwestern's going anywhere this year. I don't think Maryland's going anywhere this year. It is seeming like a tradition that we have Maryland the week. We have to go to Maryland the week before we have Ohio State at home. It's just like, I guess Maryland asked for that. Like they hope to be that team that just comes and gets us.
Be your trap game every year.
Yes, and it's almost worked for them every year. Like every time, it's like it ends up being like one of those games where it's like a 15-point game for most of the, and then all of a sudden they score and they get the extra, they get the 2-point conversion. Now it's 7 points and 53 seconds left, and they're like, ah ha ha, we're one score away from you.
Yeah.
We're like,
We were
yes,
this
but
close.
yeah, like yeah, if you got the onside kick, you might have had a chance, man. That's cool, but like that's that's just another game where like you never know what you're gonna get. Maryland, I feel like they don't really have much. They got picked apart this year, and then Ohio State. I think that I kind of want to think the under. You got a freshman quarterback. You have a lot of unknowns at Michigan, and you're playing a lot of unknowns with a lot of upside. I don't think all of them are going to be, falling on their face. I think a few of them might. If I had to guess, Wisconsin, USC are easier than people realize, and Oklahoma and Nebraska are better than people realize. Michigan State's better than people realize. And then they have kind of a good November. Let's put it that
To
way.
me, it really feels like that Oklahoma game is such a swing game because if you win that early and you're able to, you know, if you win that early, you look at the environments and you look at the talent of teams that you'll play through the rest of the season. And I don't know if there's another game on the schedule where the talent plus the environment, the atmosphere you'll be playing in, match that, right? And so, not that you beat Oklahoma, you all of a sudden win every game left on the schedule. Maybe Oklahoma goes 4-8 and fires Venables, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that, man, when you beat Oklahoma, you go out to USC a couple of weeks later, you're maybe not pressing as much. Maybe it's not as much of a, oh my gosh, we already have a loss in the tank and we're going on another road trip. We got to win that. So I think that one, to me, if you win that one early, it could really set them up to have a good year. If you lose it early, maybe you pressed in some of these big games, like you were talking about Washington, USC, Wisconsin, Nebraska, whatever. To me, that one just feels so big. Not that certainly in a 12-team playoff, not that one loss early matters all that much, but a win feels like it could just be so massive.
Yeah, I mean last year they had that loss to Texas where that was the blowout, right? That was the loss. They just were not in it. And part of that was because they were trying too hard. Now that game was at home, but it was almost like they didn't know who they were anymore, right? And then as the season went along, they're like, here's what we can do, here's what we can't do. I think that this year they're going to go in knowing a little bit more what they can do, but offensively, they kind of had to rebuild themselves. And there's
Yeah.
going to be that moment, and you're going to get in an away environment, and it's going to. I think that we used to have this game against Notre Dame every year, and that was like the tell all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you would have Michigan and Notre Dame would play each other, and both teams would get overhyped, and both teams would get overranked because that's how things work, right? And then we'd play each other and be like, "Hey, it's number 2, we're Notre Dame versus number 4, Michigan," and like then you'd see, right, who you tell who was who in this game, and then and that really would set the season. And you would have some years where we went in and we coming off a bad year, like in 2006, and you play Notre Dame and we just crush them, and you're like, okay, we got something. And Notre Dame's like, maybe we're believing too much of our own hype. It's got that game is, I think Oklahoma is kind of for this season going to be that game where you find out what you can and can't do, because teams, athletes, coaches, they all fall into the same hole. I think I can do anything, right? You're playing at this level. You come through high school, you come through lower levels of college, you won a national championship. For some of the guys in this team and some of the coaches on this team, they feel like they can do anything. And the reality sets in over the season. You find out what you can and can't do. And I think that when they go into Oklahoma, Michigan's going to find that they can't do a lot of things they think they can do. I think Oklahoma is probably going to find that they can do some things. Um, they they really, that game flipped for me when they picked up John Mateer, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
he popped in. Everyone was like, okay, when's that guy gonna go? He goes. Oklahoma jumps on him, and that was a humongous pickup for them. So now they know exactly who their quarterback is, and he's a guy who's played a lot of football and has that ability to put the ball anywhere. So Michigan's probably still going to be gelling on defense, figuring out who, like younger guys are figuring out where they're supposed to be. And it's not like Ohio State where we have all season to watch that quarterback and prepare for him and know what we're getting into. I think that's probably going to be a wake up call moment for Michigan. They're going to realize what they can and can't do. And then you're going to see them maybe hobble a little bit into Nebraska, who scares me because I think they're going to be a much better team next year than they were last year. And then you got a bye week. And I think at that point, you're probably going to reassess some things, understand who you are, and come back and be what they can be. Um, I I wish I could tell you that I had more confidence going into that game, or that like I was like, oh, who knows? I'm trying to see what the team looks like now. Obviously, we haven't had a spring yet, and I'm not quite sure how Oklahoma's building. I think that they get too much credit for being the Oklahoma they were before this coaching staff came in, and they're not that anymore. They're a lot more defensively oriented. But if Oklahoma seems like they're kind of coming to a peak year, and I think Oklahoma's going to show us that they can play, that they can do some things, and I think that Michigan is going to realize that they're a good team, but not a contender at that
Yeah.
point. And that that's okay. That's okay for where we are. It's the freshman year of Bryce Underwood, right?
Yeah. It's certainly not national championship or bust like it is in some other places.
Yeah.
Right. So, Seth, where can people follow you? Where can they find your work? Where can they check out the greatest Twitter handle on the, or X handle on the app? Where can they get all your content, man?
I'm at Masapagan on there. I'm at MGoSeth. I'm not really on Twitter that much anymore. I'm more Blue Sky these days. So at MGoSeth on Blue Sky. Really just go to mgoblog.com. We're mostly talking basketball right now because Michigan is number one in the Big Ten, and we have a huge game against Michigan State coming up on Friday. So this is that's where our focus lies right now. And football wise, we're going to have a book coming out. We're going to do we just had a book come out. We had a big national championship, gorgeous. Put all my effort into it. Sell this thing for $150 a piece. Like 3-year book, national championship book that I got done with last year. We're getting a few more copies in because we sold out 10,000 really quickly, and I have more coming in soon. But we're also going to announce soon that we're going to be doing our preview book for next year, Hail to the Victors, and that will be out there soon too. So, mgoblog.com, and you can skip the basketball stuff, or you press the football button, and we'll have all our football content right there.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you taking a little bit of time and chatting with us today, man. We'll get you back on again soon, maybe in spring or just after, and talk some more Michigan football, bud.
Yeah, man. I'm glad. The only thing I can do with my sling right now, I can't write very well.
Just do a bunch of talking.
Yeah. Let's do all the talk radio now.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah.